Welcome back to your morning on Spectrum News 1. Tyler Robinson, the man authorities are accusing of murdering conservative activist Charlie Kirk, is making his first appearance in a Utah courtroom today. And FBI Director Kash Patel says he was arrested late Thursday night and will now be in court 5 days later. Here to discuss this and more is Neama Rahmani of West Coast Trial Lawyers and former federal prosecutor. Good morning, Neama. Great having you on as always.
Kelvin, good morning. Good to see you.
All right, let's go back to last week with the news of his arrest, and he came out on Friday morning in Utah saying that he was apprehended the night before. So why did it take so long for the formal charges to be filed, Neama, and also until his first court appearance? What was the difference in the time?
Well, Kelvin, under Utah law, prosecutors have 3 days to arraign a defendant once they've been in custody, and that's 3 court days, which is today. And I think they wanted to make sure that they got it right. I expect to hear aggravated murder charges, and that's important because under Utah law, that carries the potential death penalty. There they have lethal injection. They actually have the firing squad if that doesn't work. So that's really the big question in this case. Is he going to face the death penalty, and will federal prosecutors also file charges on top of the state case? We've seen that recently in a couple high-profile cases like Luigi Mangione in New York and DeCarlos Brown in North Carolina.
You know, prosecutors need a plan to file aggravated murder charges, which would make him eligible for the death penalty that you just brought up there. What does the term aggravated mean, and what do they have to do to prove that?
So aggravated means, in this particular case, that Tyler Robinson posed an unreasonable risk to the public when he shot and killed Charlie Kirk. He shot into a crowd, so he could have killed anyone. And that's what makes this an aggravated murder as opposed to another type of murder. And of course, that makes him death penalty eligible. Now, when you're talking about the death penalty, it's really an issue of weighing the aggravating factors and the mitigating factors. So the fact that maybe this was done for political reasons, of course, that will be an aggravating factor. That it was plotted, planned, premeditated, another aggravating factor. On the other side, I think the defense will argue, here's someone who's young, he's only 22 years old, no criminal history, who turned himself in. He didn't go on the run for weeks or months. So I think that's where we're going to see the main argument in this case, not so much as to who did this, but what the appropriate penalty should be.
Well, Tyler Robinson is reportedly, Neama, not cooperating with authorities, but we've seen the video. We were just showing some of those. The video of him jumping off the rooftop, and his DNA was also found on the towel that was wrapped it with a suspected murder weapon. Does the fact that he's not cooperating make it harder for prosecutors, or does it really matter with strong such evidence that we've seen? Again, we got the videos, we have the DNA.
I think it's the latter, Kelvin. Like you mentioned, it's a very strong case from a guilt perspective. We've all seen the video, obviously, both, before and after the murder. So, we've tracked his movements. I'm sure we're going to see more of that from cell site evidence, as well as the gray vehicle that he was driving. Now you have biometric evidence. You have his DNA on the towel and the screwdriver that he left behind. So I expect to see even more evidence, like fingerprints, palm prints, DNA. This wasn't someone who was really careful. And then you have those admissions on Discord before the murder, and then the confession on Discord after the murder, as well as to a family member. So it seems like a very strong case from a guilt perspective. Again, I think the penalty is not a foregone conclusion, but I think we're going to see more and more evidence in this case. And regardless of whether Tyler Robinson is cooperating or not, I do think he is going to be convicted in this case.
Well, what happens during the arraignment that we know is coming up here? Is Tyler expected to speak?
I don't think he's going to speak. His lawyer is going to enter a not guilty plea on his behalf, and we're not going to hear about the death penalty today. The state has 60 days to file their notice of intent to seek the death penalty. But when the president of the United States and the governor of Utah is saying that it's going to be a death penalty case, I do take them at their word, and I think the state is going to file that notice within a matter of weeks.
All right, so get you out of here on this one, Neama. What's the next legal move after his arraignment? Does Kirk influence with the White House and the investigation being partly done with the FBI mean federal charges could be coming as well?
I do expect there to be federal charges. When you have the President of the United States, the Attorney General, the Director of the FBI talking about the case, and the fact that there's this political layer over the legal case, I think we are going to see federal charges. Now, a little bit different from some of the other cases I mentioned, like Mangione and Brown. Obviously, New York doesn't have the death penalty. That's why the feds filed there. North Carolina does have the death penalty in theory, but in practice, it's not implemented because you need a physician there. The medical board there doesn't allow physicians to be present for executions. Utah does have the death penalty, but I still expect, given the very, very high profile nature of this case, the fact that maybe it was done for political reasons or as an act of domestic terrorism, I do expect there to be federal charges down the road.
All right, as this continues to unfold, we'll continue to watch, and Neama Rahmani will definitely help us out. Of course, Neama Rahmani, again, of West Coast Trial Lawyers and former federal prosecutor. Thank you for joining us, as always. We appreciate it.
Of course, Kelvin. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
All right, you do the same.